Normally I face the other direction. You get a nice view of the forest behind my house, but I evidently need to do some cobweb clearing on that side of the deck. And I tend to have a bad reaction to spider bites, so I'm going to sit on this side. And this is my house. I'm very sad today. I've done a few videos. This year seems to be the year that the harvester or death or the grim reaper or whatever you want to call it, basically death has visited my house now 3 times. And one time he was a companion for us, as I needed to choose what was best for my best friend and pet cat, and that is what she is, a tabby cat, and was, and her name, as I came into her life when she was about 9 years old. She was very already attached to her name and wouldn't really answer to anything else. So cat it is. I spelled with a K to give it a differentiation that it is her name. Yesterday was really hard, and actually it started on the weekend. I've shared, as I said a few times now, that my cat, I think I did. There's been so much that has happened this year. Well, she had stage 2 kidney failure, and she was actually, for her age, and she was a long-lived cat. She made it to almost 23 years, about 23 years. Her birthday would have been next month because she was born in September. I don't know the exact date. I just know from my mother-in-law, who had helped raise her, that she was born in September. And she has been my friend since she was 9, and she's, like I said, about almost 23 years old. So I've known her longer than I've known my children. Choosing to release her from the pain she was in was hard, because pretty much within a day after this current UTI incident, I believe it was a UTI, she had one last month, and I wasn't sure. I sent a video then saying, I don't know what's going to happen. This has been ongoing, and I just couldn't, I didn't want to put her through this anymore. Kidney failure is not curable, although they can help make the pet or friend comfortable, but it's really just keeping the animal around because you can't bear to lose them, or you don't really know how much pain they're in. And I'm told that kidney failure doesn't really hurt. It's all the side effects and the different progression that can be uncomfortable and painful. And one of them is being vulnerable to UTIs. And according to my mother-in-law, I've never had a UTI, so I don't know how painful they are, but she told me they are very painful. And if I had known that sooner, I probably would have just made the decision back in late June, early July. Her mother lived almost as long as a cat. She was another 21, at least 20 years old cat. Good genes in that cat family. I think I said she was a tabby. I'm still really, it was just yesterday. I feel like my heart has a piece torn out of it. I don't remember being this upset when my grandmother or my dad died. I had a very different reaction to their deaths. But I also realized they weren't part of my daily life. We saw each other. It was so different. And I was very numb when my dad died, and I felt very similar when my grandmother died. But this time, I mean, the time you spend with your pets is like totally different than the time you spend with family or friends. They aren't necessarily with you every day, day in and day out. Your pets live with you all the time. And for a time of our lives, our children live with us a long time too. And we live with our parents for a long time, but then we go out and live our lives. There may be variations of that depending on culture and whatnot, but it's very different. This isn't the first time I've had to make this decision with a beloved pet, or I don't really think of them as pets. To me, they're like companions and beloved family members, and they are just as much a being, a child of Mother Earth as I am, and equal to her love. I know I probably shouldn't take it at all personally. I don't really think I am, but I found it ironic. For a little while, they had to take Kat to put an easy way to put the medicine through, like I don't know what it's called, some kind of needle entry tube thing, so that they could put the 2 different shots. It was a sedative and then whatever stops the heart, so she would be relaxed and make it easier for her to pass. And while she was gone, they'd set up the room really nicely. There was a soft pad on the counter that you put your pet on to be examined, and then a very a nice blanket, pet blanket, a blanket. And on either side were a couple of books, and one of them had a bunch of everything from poems to prayers to other things, but they were Christian, a few of them. And some of them were just, famous writings related to animals and some cats and different stuff. It was thoughtful, but I was like, even here, I can't get away from that which isn't part of my beliefs. But that's fine. They don't know. They're your vet. They don't know what your spirituality is unless you spend a lot of time with them. But one thing that I have run into this year, even this time, because I had to go to 2 different vets. I have one vet that sees my cats, and they don't take care of ferrets. And I had to release Yogi, our ferret, in the spring or late winter, early spring, something like that. And I had to ask then about if I allow them to cremate him, where does the ashes go? I know technically you can take them, but it was a much larger expense to privately have our pets cremated and then bring the ashes home. And I don't know. I chose another method, and I wanted to know if when the ashes are released, what do they do with the ashes of the pet? Because I chose a community. Yeah. So they didn't really know. The one place where I had my ferret put to sleep because he was screeching and in a coma and like seizing and everything was horrible. They said that they found out that the place does release the ashes back to nature. They have a special area where they do that. And I asked the same this time around, and they said that they didn't know because it was a totally different vet, and I didn't know if they used the same place or a totally different company. But they gave me the company's name, so I have to find that out. But just in case, I ended up, as I was petting Kat, and collecting some of her hair because she's been shedding like crazy. It's a side effect of her illness. And I plan to either just release or burn the furs that I kept, because it wasn't a lot of furs, just some of it, because it has our essence in it, and hopefully it will help make sure part of her soul is released back to nature. Because I remember when my dad died, I was very concerned or surprised that he was going to have his ashes just put into some little cement blocked wall. Evidently, as a veteran, he gets special, like his stuff is covered, and that was one of the ways. My grandmother wanted to be released out to sea, and my uncle took care of that. My dad had told me that he wanted his ashes under a rose bush, and because I knew I was moving, I hadn't done that yet, and now we are slowly. There's a front area in the house that has bushes and areas for plants, and I'm probably going to end up planting the rose over there for him, so he'll finally, his ashes at least will be connected to Mother Earth. But he had a Christian burial because that was his wish. Anyways, totally off topic, sort of. I just wish those who deal with this aspect of life would be more thorough in their knowledge of all the steps and where the ashes ended up and all that stuff. We considered keeping her, but where we live, the ground is kind of really hard and there's a lot of roots, and it's hard to bury because you're supposed to do it like 3 feet down. And yeah, so basically I haven't been on here much lately because I've been dealing with a terminally ill beloved family member who was my best friend and partner in crime, Kat. And I'm already missing her a lot. I ended up needing to go around the house and get a lot of the wet pads up that I had placed around the house. Oh, hi, Bella. I hope you're enjoying the weather so far, although the smoke isn't exactly great, or is it haze? Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying not to be too sad around my kids, but also share with them what I'm going through because yeah, it's not too bad here. There is a little bit of a haze, and I wasn't planning on staying outside too long. But I really needed to like ground, and unfortunately I'm allergic to grass, so and I can't remember if this is the season or not, if it's giving off its stuff. Yeah, it is. It's, well, she was more my best friend. I didn't raise her as a child. I got her when she was 9 years old, and Kat would have been 23 years old this September. So she had a nice long life. I don't regret the decision. I just miss my friend. Yeah. Yeah, it was like having a sister that I got to have all the time. And she was my best friend too. Yeah, she's been with me. She cuddled my kids in the cradle, gave them warmth. She's, yeah, she's been with me through so much. Yeah. Oh, yeah, when you're with them when they're first born and have them all their life, having a companion through their whole life, yeah, you're like their mother. They are one of your kids at that point. You've raised them. They're lifetime family members. It's awesome. It felt different with Kat because I didn't raise her. Whereas my son's cat Mittens, I actually nursed her. She was like very young, so young that I had to clean her and bottle nurse her and everything. And she's not my cat, but she still comes to me a lot for attention. Um, and she favors my son. So yeah, it's different when you raise them from a little tiny kitten. Um, so I totally get it. Yeah. This is actually my second time of having to make a decision like this. When I was in my teens in college, I had a cat that got extremely sick with feline leukemia. And I had two other cats, and because that one cat had feline leukemia, and we were trying to decide what to do, and at first I was caring for him all the time. I had to get the other two cats tested, and one was totally clean, no illness, in great condition, and the other one was an outdoor cat that had feline HIV, and he was not going to be a cat that I could convert happily into living indoors, and I couldn't, in good conscience, continue to allow him to roam and possibly get other people's pets sick. So I had two cats at that time that I had to put down. One, because I couldn't afford the treatments for the feline leukemia, and two, because even though he wasn't sick in the way he would be later on, he was a carrier and would spread the disease. So um, I had to put down both Mischief and Watcher at that time. One was a tabby. He had the leukemia, and Watcher was one of those Asian mixed. He looked like cocoa froth with tabby markings, and he was a creamy mocha color. He was gorgeous with blue eyes. um, and I actually did raise him from a kitten. So I was with him his whole life, and he lived about um, around I think 13 years. Yeah, so he had a fairly good life too. um, so yeah, that as hard as this decision was, I didn't, as I mentioned towards the beginning. I don't think you were on yet, Bella. I didn't realize how much pain Kat was in. I knew there was something going on, but she kept seeking me out, and she was still eating, and she was very vocal, and I knew that she was going through, possibly, I wasn't sure if it was vocalization for pain or vocalization for being lost. As old as she was, they start getting a little dementia, or forgetting where they are, or they can't figure out where you are, or short-term memory type of thing. Those were all leading things. I was like, okay, well, is her quality of life so bad that it's time? Because I always knew that I didn't think I would be waiting for her to just naturally die. We had been expecting her to pass for like over 5 years. We were like, how strong is this cat, you know? And I was happy to let her naturally go if she would, but she always bounced back from everything with just a little help. Even when she came down with the massive signs of kidney failure, I didn't know that was going on. She lost all kinds of weight, got pretty thin, and then when I just figured she was having a reaction to food, that she was old. It was part of an old cat's thing, that maybe they lose weight when they die, because that has actually happened to people in my life. They were chubby people that lost massive amounts of weight, and then they died after losing a certain amount. It seemed to be a pattern that I saw with people around me. So I thought she was following a similar pattern, and then she started recovering, but then she had something happened. Like she was shedding so much, I was starting to react to it because of my sensory issues, having so much excessive fur all over me. I was having a reaction to her. I took her in, and they informed me that she was at second stage kidney failure, and that was in the winter, last winter. She had the massive weight loss in I guess, the first stage in the fall. So this has been progressing, and she had a UTI about a month ago and just got a second occurrence, if not like a UTI crystal or something just happened. And it was like a day and a half, and then she was starting to get better, but I had already made the appointment for her. And I was kind of doubting myself, but then I talked to my mother-in-law, and again, not sorry to repeat a little bit, but she conveyed to me how painful UTIs are. And I had no clue. I've never had one. I guess I hadn't really researched it before, and I felt so bad because I knew she was uncomfortable, but she was always so insistent to be near me. And she, she'd done that before, but it had been more intense, and always made an effort, was able to climb up and down, able to eat. Had a few days where it was hard to go to the restroom, but otherwise pretty lively cat, sleeping a lot. I mean, she's old, that's what they do. But still interested in some things. She did stop playing with the laser light. uh, Usually she just kind of track it with her eyes. Over the last 3 weeks, she just doesn't care about it anymore. She kind of looks at it and then just looks away. Yeah. So yeah, I knew it was it. It's not going to get better, and that's something I think we need to take into consideration. As much as we love our pets, should we keep them hanging on because we think they should have their natural time period, or is it better to help them release so they don't have to be in pain? And for me, this also relates to anybody and everybody, be human or anybody. I think that there shouldn't be such a harsh judgment on the idea of assisted release, or whatever you want to call it, because if we're going to call it humane treatment to put our animals to sleep so they don't have to keep going through pain or a terminal illness, why is it so different for us? And this is, I know, is a touchy subject, but I've always felt like we should be just as humane to ourselves as we would be to an animal, because they're beings too, and they're equal to us. I know not everybody feels that way, but as a pagan, that's a strong line for me. I am going to try to start getting back to doing videos, but I'm really sad right now. I didn't even work last night, and I really need to be working. And then on top of that, my gerbil, the same weekend, last weekend, I found a tumor on him, and I don't know what to do. He's already about 4 years old, so I have made an appointment for him for next week, but I don't know. He is so old, and yeah. So I feel like, like I said in the opening, I feel like death has been a companion of mine this year. He's visited our house, and I have had to make hard decisions involving death, he or she, if it even has a sex. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm not resentful. I actually have mixed reactions to death myself, because unfortunately for me, I know why it is, but I haven't been able to do, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do the healing work. Part of my panic attacks is about death. But when I think about death itself, it doesn't really panic me. It's more about not being here to be there for my family or whatever. I'm not really fearful of the death itself. I'm not really fearful of, decomposing, of joining back with Mother Earth or any of that. But there is an aspect that can get an anxiety reaction for me, and even panic attacks related to death. I was in a car accident at a very young age, and I think I was like 5 or 6. I must have been 6 because my sister was born. Yeah, I was 6, and she was a baby, a very tiny baby. And then just a few years later, I was in another car accident, and I was trapped in a vehicle. So I had post-traumatic stress, and we have anxiety that runs in the family, and I have sensory issues. Now, I've been told from my mom that I was always sensitive to light and sounds, but she does feel my system got more sensitive after certain events that I've experienced. And for me, death is just a part of life. I just wish that as I was growing up, the religion I was raised in had helped me deal with it better, or accept it better, because I was really frightened of certain things when I was younger. I think I was a flat out scaredy cat in a way, or at least a sensitive cat really early on. So I wasn't hesitating on putting her down because a fear of death, or not wanting to be without her. I just didn't realize how much pain she was in. And if I had known that sooner, I would have, because I mean, I felt that she was uncomfortable, but she seemed to be wanting to experience more. And when I connected with her energetically, it was like she was hiding stuff from me. Because I've been around animals in pain and close to death, and I know what that feels like. Even trees, I can feel that when they're ready, when they're fading and releasing their cycles, and are then becoming, just kind of dead wood that's no longer following the cycles of their nature. I couldn't do a reading on this. I was too close. I had done readings before, just trying to get a feel for how Kat was feeling, because I found that when I use my divination tools, that it helps create a bit of a buffer, but also a bit of a bridgeway when I'm emotionally connected to the questions or the people I'm reading for. But I ended up calling a friend, and I feel bad now. Evidently, the death had been at her door as well. Not on her, but her mother had been ill for a long time, and it just so happens that she had to make the hard decision to allow her to pass too, and to deactivate whatever was keeping her alive. And that's probably something I shouldn't be talking too much about. That's her personal thing. But I asked her if she would do a reading, and I didn't realize what she was going through at the time. I could hear that she was sad and tired, but I wasn't sure what was going on. We hadn't talked in a little while, and being in my own misery, I wasn't being as sensitive as I usually try to be when I ask a friend for reading or insight. And she told me kind of what I was feeling, that Kat could linger a bit longer, but it would be okay. I could choose either way. And it seemed a little bit more of me wanting to keep my friend around. So I was like, okay, I don't know about that. Not that I doubted her word, but I was like, ooh, if that's my motivation, I need to really find out, be very clear on what's going on with Kat. And even she didn't mention the pain that Kat was going through, but that Kat was hanging on for me, for wanting to stay in our connection. And I remember doing this when my father was dying. I wasn't there, but I got the phone call, and my family was in such denial over what he was going through. Even the last week, they were looking for ways to deal with his muscular dystrophy. He was having heart failure. He was shutting down. I hadn't talked to him properly on the phone for months. I asked my grandmother to hold the phone to his ear, and I told him that I loved him. I said, if it's your time to go, just go. Don't be in pain anymore. It's totally fine. But if you can stay, if the energy is given to you to stay, I welcome that too. And that all I wanted was for him to be without pain. And if it was his time, that he should just go and know that we loved him. And evidently, I was the only one who had said anything like that to him. The rest were all encouraging him to fight and praying to their God to save him and not take him yet. And I was just like, he is suffering. Why would you keep him here? As much as I loved him, his quality of life was just not good. And he was in pain and having to take shots and pretty much bedridden, barely could get to the bathroom. It was not good. And Kat on some days couldn't. She had done some damage to the floor. I'd barely discovered it when I don't know how long the current illness had been going on, but there was enough damage on the floor that it must have been a week or so, maybe longer, because she was hiding that she was peeing in an area that I just hadn't noticed somehow. And I ended up cleaning that, and then she started having bloody urine again, and that was the whole, okay, UTI again. So anyways, rambled enough, I think. This is already a little over a half hour. My point is that as hard as this is, having pets is a responsibility, and we need to make the choices that are best for them, even if we want them around longer. And as I couldn't understand or make peace with myself trying to keep her alive if she was in so much pain that I couldn't tell, which is shocking for me. She was hiding it well, because I'm usually aware of pain. It's something I can usually feel in my own body. And thank you for watching this and for sending your love, Bella. But I was going to pull a card. I just don't know how I was going to feel about that. I have my Shapeshifter tarot. I don't know. I didn't even work last night because I spontaneously start crying off and on. I cried pretty hard several hours after, about 3 hours after I was with her when she passed. I was crying so hard and so loudly that I scared my children. And I could not stop myself, and I could not quiet myself. It was a good half hour to an hour of just deep heartbreak, wailing, and loss of my friend. And ooh, let's see what popped out. Ooh, interesting. Okay. Dinosaur friends, childhood treasures resurface. Well, to me, that's usually about memories of good times and treasured times. It can be childhood, can just be past memories and affection and connection, and maybe things coming up that remind you and resurface as support and love to help you through hard times, or even just to give you a smile or a laugh. Yeah, I actually really like this card. My sons, especially my youngest, was big into dinosaurs, and my eldest kind of trailed along with it because he thought some of them were kind of cool. And Kat actually used to sniff and knock down their dinosaurs. Yeah. Okay. All right. Hold on to your treasured memories. They'll be with you to comfort you. I personally plan on making sure her spirit completely passes at Samhain in October, and just treasuring her for as long as possible. And I won't forget her ever, and I will love her forever, but I want to make sure she reconnects and rests peacefully. So, all right. Enough of this. Treasure your memories. Okay, bye.